Hello everyone, welcome to the course. Right, that's quantitative reasoning, and that's our first chapter, chapter 3, number in real world. Right, the first unit is about the percentage, uses and abuses of percentage. Right, so what is percentage? Right, the percentage is the word percent, which simply means per 100 or divided by 100. Use the symbol percent as a shorthand for the words percent. Right, so we have 50%, for example. That's just 50 divided by 100 equals 0.5. You could use calculator to do your work. Right, 50 divided by 100, that result gives you 0.5. Or even you can do that 50%, you have decimal point, and to move 2 places to the left, right? The percent symbol means just divide by 100. When you divide by a number by 100, that's move decimal 2 places to the left. And you get is 0.5. Right, similarly, 36%, that's divide by 100, your decimal point, move 2 places to the left, gives you 0.36. Or you can do 36 divided by 100, will give you same thing. The calculator, 36 divided by 100, that gives you 0.36. 121 you can try, and that should give you same thing. Right, 121% when you use your calculator or use the same method, that hit should be 1.21. Okay, 121%, erase that and move your places to the left. Right, gives you finally that's 1.2. All right, and let's see some examples about the percentage. Right, the newspaper reports that 44% of 1,069 people surveyed. Right, 44% of 1,069 people surveyed said what? Said the president is doing a good job. Right, and asking for how many say the president is doing a good job, right? So the category provided and they ask are the same thing, right? Be careful of the question. Sometimes maybe they ask the opposite category. Okay? So be careful. But this one simply just asking is what is 44% of 1,069. Right, that's 1,069 multiplied by 44%. And convert to decimal will be easiest way to do it, right? 0.44. And we just use calculate, right? 1,069 multiplied by 0.44. That gives 470.36. But of course, right, intuitively, we're doing the amount of people, so we need to round it, right? The whole number have to be. And since this digit after the decimal is below and equal to 4, we round it off. That will be 470 people, right? Said that the president is doing a good job anyway. For the percent, another application we can do is absolute and the relative change. The absolute change describes what? The actual increase or decrease from a reference value to a new value. right? So you have an old value, you have a new value, then the change between them from the reference to the new is your absolute change, right? Logically, it makes sense. Absolute change will be the new value minus the reference value. And the relative change is a fraction that describes the size of the absolute change in comparison to the reference value. So it's the ratio of absolute change over the reference value. And usually we use the relative change as a percentage, right? So after that, we find the quotient, then the percentage we convert to, right, from the decimal answer of the relative change. Well, we see the example, right? 6-month period, Nokia stock price doubled from $10 to $20. What is the absolute change and the relative change in the stock price? Right, so describe about the changes. Now we need what? Reference value. That is $10. And the new value is $20, right? That's for sure. Then the formula absolute change, that will be the new value minus the reference value is $10 changes, right? The positive sign means here we can see clearly, right? That's increased by $10. And relative change, that is the absolute change divided by the reference value. Well, in this case, they are actually the same. Well, when we divide, that's 1. Right? And when we want to convert a number to a percentage, we'll multiply by 100% and multiply the number parts and leave the percentage. 1 times 100, that's 100. So basically that we get the relative change is 100%. That increased by 100%, in other words. The next example is similar, world population growth. You can pause the video, read your question, and try to do that. And we'll go back to do that together. Okay, I assume you have paused and try practice it. Let's do that together, right? World population was 2.6 billion in 1950 and 6.0 billion in 2000. Describe the absolute change and the relative change in world population from 1950 to 2000. Right, so we have the reference value that is 2.6 billion. The new value in 2000, but that's after change, that's 6.0 billion. Right, so the absolute change is taking new value minus the reference, 6 billion minus 2.6 billion. Right, you can use calculator to find it. 6 minus 2.6. 6 minus 2.6, that's 3.4. which means it is what, increased by 3.4 billion from 1950 to 2000. Right. And then the relative change is the, oh, we found the absolute change already. So that's absolute change divided by the reference value. So what? 3.4 billion divided by 2.6 billion. Right? And when we see the amount billion could be get rid of, right? Could be canceled. And that's simply just 3.4 divided by 2.6. And we got what? 1.3076, whatever. 307, 692, 308. Right, whatever. And multiply that by 100%, we get 130.769. For this decimal rounding, well, it's up to you, right? If you want to put 131% or round to one digit, 130.8%, is both all right, okay? All right, so that's this one, relative and the absolute change. Oh, and the next one, right? Describe depreciating a computer, right? You have a computer bought 3 years ago, that is 1,000. And today it's worth only $300, and that is a decrease, right? That amount is a decrease. So we have still the reference value was 1,000, and its new value nowadays is 300. Right. So we have the absolute change, that's a new value, minus the reference value, always, right? Doesn't matter which one is big, which one is small. And you find what? We find out its negative value, negative $700, which means the negative sign here means what? Means the value is actually decreased by $700. And the relative change is the absolute change over what? Over the reference. Then you can still use a calculator, right? Negative 700 divided by 1,000. That's negative 0.7. You multiply that by 100%, right? These two values multiply. 0.7 times 100, that's 70. Right, so the value is decreased by 70%. All right, so that's the percentage and the sum application of it. And we see other things, right, are off versus more than or less than, right? We all see the off before, Our relative change, the first question we have seen was like 44% of the total, right? But here, we have the off versus percentage. Right? If the compared value is p% more than the reference value, that is 100 plus p% of the reference value. We'll see example, so that's what it is, right? And another thing is p% less than the reference value, then that is 100 minus p % of the reference value. Right, the example sees, well, Carol earns 50% more than William. How many times larger is her income than his? Right, so Carol earns 50% more than William. All right, let me write better. %50 more. And from the previous slide, we see that 50% more means 100 plus 50% of the wages William earns. Right, so that is 100%, 150% of William. So that is what Carol earns, therefore 1.5, 1.5 times of William's income. That is 1.5 times 150%. You could just divide by 100 to get 1.5. Right, to get 1.5. So that Carol earns 1.5 times larger of the Williams income. Right, okay, and the sale, right? The sale. A storage saving 25% off sale on everything. So one item sales price compared to the original price. So the item, whatever it is, that's a 25% off to get the sale price, or yeah, the sale price on sale. Right, then that's 125% off means that's 25% less than the original price, which is 100 minus 25% of the original price. That means it's 75% of the sales price, of the original price. Right, so sale price is 75% of the original price. Right, if you have questions, you can go back to the slides to see more than or less than what they means. Right, so let's see the application. Right, you purchase a shirt with a labeled price. A labeled price is pre-tax of $17. Your local sales tax rate is 5%, and what's your final cost? Right, so the final cost intuitively is 5% more than the labeled price, right? Because your tax is percentage applied to the original price, and just simply add to your original price. So in other words, 105% of labeled price, right? That makes sense, right? Your final cost should be 105% of your labeled price. That means if your labeled price is $17, your final cost is $17 multiplied by 105%. In other words, that's $17 multiplied by 1.05. Right, now we use calculator. 17, 1.05. That's $17.85, where the 85 cents is your amount of tax paid. Right, so that $17.85 is what you paid at the end. And backwards, right, your receipt shows that you pay $19.26 for DVD tax included. Local tax rate is 7%. So what's the label price, right? You can try to do the question in the same logic, pause the video and try to do it. Okay, so again, I assume you, every time you pause it and try to practice, right, before I move on. Right, so the local sale tax is 7%. That means 107% of the label price is what you pay. And the question is asking for labeled price. Is what you paid for the DVD, $19.26. Right, so 1.07 multiplied by the labeled price gives $19.26. And only the labeled price is the unknown. So what we could do is divide the 1.07 on each side of the equation, right? We have an equation here, right? Basic algebra. To find the unknown, we could do some operation, right? In other words, the labeled price will be the quotient of $19.26 and 1.07. $19.26, 1.07. Well, the labeled price in here, it gives us just the whole number, right? If it's not in case, what we could do is round to 2 digits decimal, since that is money, right? The money, the currency is other story, but the daily spend money, the smallest unit is cent, right? So 2 digits decimal of dollar will be how it's round to. But in this case, that's a whole number, 18. Right, so the labeled price is $18. Right, then abuses of percentage, right? Me too need to be careful when someone tell you about the percentage. Right, let's see the following case. The situation here, because of losses by employer, right? So your employer tells you, well, that will be 10% pay cut, but that's temporarily, right? Temporary 10% pay cut. Then it's processed to give you a 10% back after 6 months, right? Regardless of other things like this period amount, but the Does this raise restore your original salary? You can think of that, right? Does that restore your original salary, or that's a little bit off? Or that's a little bit less, or that's a little bit more, right? Like ideally, when working longer, your wage, right, will be more and more and more. Even salary will be more and more and more in percentage raise or in absolute raise, right? But because of the losses, right, cut, then move back, raise back. It's supposedly to raise back to the original as promised, but what let's see, right? The first pay cut, that is what? 10% pay cut. That's 10% less. What it means is we have less than the original amount. So that means 100 minus 10 is 90% of original salary, right? 90% of your original salary. That makes sense, right? When you have 10% pay cuts, that's 90% of the original salary. Then promise to rise back, that means it's 10% pay rise after 6 months. So when we say pay raise, that's 10% more, which means it's what? 100 plus 10. As we see in the previous slide and previous two examples, right? Couple example, that's 110% of not the original, it's after the pay cut. It's 110% of pay cut. Right, so that is the thing, right? When we get that, the pay cut gives us 90% of the original, right? In other words, we can write the other way. That's the original times 90%. And then the pay cut times 110%. Right? While the pay cut is original times 90%, the total, the final new price, that new salary, yeah, it promised to be 100% of your original salary. %, 110%. So the question is, does this one adds or multiply to 1? Right? If not, if below, then your salary is actually below. Right? So use calculator. 0.9 times 1.1 is 0.99. What that means? It means it's 99% of your original salary, right? Does that raise restore your original salary? No, right? Not restore the original. It's actually a cut, right? It's 1% cut of your original salary after even like 6 months. Right? So when your boss promised that, well, it will be restored, 10% cut, 10% raise, actually it doesn't. It's 1%, it looks not big, but imagine that you earn what? You earn, for example, 700,000 a year, then that 1% even makes a large difference. Right? Okay. about the tax cut. It's also step-by-step cutting, right? The politician promised that, well, if I elected, the cut of the price is of tax is 20% for each of the first 3 years of the term. But he claimed, well, that the total cut is 20%, I mean 60%. So we try to evaluate the promise. Right. So the purpose as his promise is 60% cut for the tax. Right. That means it is what? 60% less than the tax we have now. It's 40% of the payment of your taxes. That's what he promises, right? And then let's see what he is gonna do. He will do 20% cut for each year for 3 years. So no matter what he do in the middle, right? That's already a difference, but let's see what will turn out at the end. What actually actual case, right? That's 20% cut each year. That means it's what? 80% of payment year 1, 2, and 3, right? After year 1, year 2, and the year 3. So we have what? 80% cut. Let's calculate in this way, right? The tax payment multiply by 80%. And this one is the first year deduction. Right. Goes to second year, it has another 80% deduction. And goes to the third year, it has another 80% deduction. Right, so this deduction is for year 2. And this third 80% is for year 3, right? It makes sense. It's right. It cuts 20% each year, which means the first year has 80% of the original tax payment, which gets the new tax payment. And the second year has another 80% of the year 1, and the third year will have another 80% payment of the year 1 and 2. Right, so the tax payment is actually multiplied by what? You have 0.8 times 0.8 times 0.8. And this number you can multiply out to see actually what factor it multiplies at the end. Well, how much it actually deducted at the end. 0.8 times 0.8 times 0.8, that's 0.512. What did that mean? That's 51.2% of the tax payment. So it's not actually deduct 60% of your original tax payment, it's 51.2% of your original payment, right? So let's see the percentage of cut. That's only what? 48.8% cut. Instead of what he promised to be 60% cut, right? That's only a 48.8% cut. Okay. Right, so that's everything we have in the percentage, and you will see homework and other things about it. Right, so if you have any questions, you can watch the video over and go through the slides as well to practice with your own. Okay, so thank you.